Hello, greetings everyone. This is Caleb Buckley in another edition of Supporting School Leaders. And today I want to talk a little bit about a school in crisis or managing a crisis. Now, all around us today in the year 2021, we have our pandemic, we've got budget shortfalls, economic news, election uncertainty, you name it, all kinds of crises. And when you're working as a school leader, naturally the outside world comes in and affects what you do on the ground. It affects your teachers, it affects your families, students feel all of those emotions that come through. If it's the commute on the way to school, listening to their parents' radio, texting, different things that go out across social media about what's happening in the world. So let's just assume that there are always a handful of crises from outside coming into the school. I guess my message today is that the biggest thing to consider is that really all school crises are internal. And what I mean by that is how you react to something within a school setting. If it's bullying from students based on their family backgrounds, their conflicts at school, if it's personnel issues, if it's budget cuts, if it's some kind of negotiation, a facility issue, all those things you're going to manage are really a reflection of what your priorities are, what foundations you've laid in advance about how you make decisions and how you settle conflicts, and really comes down to how well trained and cohesive your team is. So whenever you can see a crisis coming, you want to make sure that you gather your team up and be prepared, just like years ago we all had to have, unfortunately, a school shooter plan or a lockdown plan, an emergency drill plan. When I was little, we had an earthquake plan. And all of those things are only as good as the employees that are putting them into practice. So it doesn't matter how good your emergency response plan is if no one knows their role and people don't know how to communicate with one another. So my message in this short video is look at how internal crises are handled and understand that everything that's external is actually an internal crisis. Because what's going to go wrong is that people within your organization are going to start to argue, to fight, to squabble over resources. And so you need a structure in place to handle conflicts and decisions and to keep that sense of community together when things go awry. Take, for example, anything that may happen to your budget as a shortfall. Well, you need to not wait until you have to take money out of the budget to have a process in which you can gather input from the community about what your priorities are. And you have a way of speaking and communicating to your constituent groups, your faculty, parents, students, administrators, board, community members, district. All those folks need a consistent and clear message about how an important decision will be made, when it will be made, what the timeline is, and most importantly, that a lot of people forget, is where their point of influence is in that decision. So if you need to cut 10% of your budget and you say we need to have this decision by a board meeting that's 60 days from now, you need to be able to go to your faculty and say we're going to have 3 meetings on this topic and these will be the dates in which we're going to do that. And then one person is going to represent that conversation to the parents and find out what's important for them. And these will be the opportunities for the parents to have input. And that could be online, could be surveys. And then you want to go with your admin team and talk about, well, how are we going to collect that and assemble it? And this is also really key. How are you going to reflect to the community what their own engagement is? So if you've done a survey and 60% of the parents feel a certain way about something, that you show them, well, 60% of you had this feeling about meeting this financial crisis. This was what you expressed as a priority. And you never want to be in a situation where you have one crisis manager. And I know we have these sort of Hollywood images of the crisis manager who steps forward and takes care and saves the day with their ultimate authority. Really, the more outside multiple points of authority you have for a crisis are actually better at a school, because the fracturing of the community is actually the crisis. It's not what's coming to you in the moment. It's that your school community cannot handle it well, is not well equipped or prepared to move through it in a cohesive way. That is the crisis. So address that crisis first before you get to the other issues. A lot of times they have a saying in Congress that they get along better in hard times because everyone agrees not everyone's going to get what they want. So sometimes a crisis is an opportunity for change, to accelerate change and make things happen more quickly, because it brings you down to your essential values. And for example, in a budget crisis, if you did have to cut 10% of your budget quickly, you would have to have a pretty good sense of what is most important to you, and maybe to let things go that would have been on the chopping block years later, would have been phased out years later. So I'm just bringing that to you as a quick little leadership check-in, especially supporting leaders that are dealing with crises for the first time. The crisis is the management of the internal relationships during the crisis. Secondarily is what's coming in from the outside, but it's all internal and needs to be dealt with in that way. So thank you for tuning into this quick piece of advice, and I'll see you soon on supporting school leaders. You can subscribe to the channel and click on the link and see some of the other videos on other topics that are being uploaded regularly. Thank you. I'm Dr. Buckley. See you next time.